Okay, so we're going in this session until 11:25. Okay, so and this is an opportunity to apply some of the things that you've learned about regulation and about organization, and also some of the things that you're going to learn about persuasion. So we're doing the case study before you've done the actual session to think about the question of how to improve regulation, how to improve the quality of medicines in Nigeria. So, whose is this? Is this yours? I'm going to be walking through here. Can you put it? I'll walk over it then. So, thank you. So, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from the last session? Okay? What's your take-home lesson from the last session? Lesson from the last session done by Cheryl. She's here to listen. What did you learn? Okay? Lesson?
Top-down is not the only solution.
Top-down is not the only solution. Okay? You know, if we think about control, regulation is an important area of control, but it has limits. What else?
Collaborative. That is not just bureaucratic, sitting out there and making regulations.
Indian bureaucrats love to do that, right?
Yeah, he's not there, so he's outside.
Okay. Collaboration. Okay. Collaboration is an important mechanism, but collaboration also has risks. Okay. Collaboration also has risks.
Market forces cannot solve equity problems.
Really?
So there's need for regulation.
Really important. Market forces cannot solve equity. If you want to increase equity, you have to think about using the government.
Coordination and controlling rules.
What about it?
What about to put some regulation and rules for evaluation, controlling in public and health sector, based in indicators of performance?
Okay, so you have to think about regulation not just of the private sector, but also of the public sector. Okay? And you can think about regulation as applying to markets, regulation as applying to organization, regulation as applying to financing, regulating your health insurance, both public and private. Regulation is really setting the rules of the game. Okay? We'll take a few more comments. Yes?
Yeah, we discussed in our group, so we agree that regulations are important. Regulations on all the 5 whatever control knobs, but at the same time there is a clear need for quality check on what is in regulation and what is a reality check, like a reality check.
So you need a quality check and reality check. That's a really
feasibility of those regulations.
The feasibility of, one of the most important things, we didn't really talk about it that much, but regulations work well when people are already doing it. Okay? If you have 80% of the people already doing it, coming back at 10:15, okay, regulation works well. If no one is coming back until 10:30, I can stand here and scream and nothing will happen. So the role of people willing to do things, one of my favorite examples is in Italy. And a lot of that depends on local values and culture. In Italy, they introduced a rule requiring seat belts. Okay? And what happened? You could buy T-shirts in the market that had a seat belt on it. Okay, so you could wear the T-shirt instead of putting on your seat belt. Okay? This is creative market getting around regulation. Okay, so now we're going to go to a real case study. So this is an actual situation in Nigeria in the year 2001. How many people other than the team from Nigeria has been to Nigeria? How many people have been to Nigeria? Okay, a few. Okay, so what was the, let's start with some understanding of Nigeria in 2001. What's the context for this case? What was Nigeria like in 2001? Can anyone give me some help in describing Nigeria? We'll go to the Nigerians. Okay. They know what Nigeria was like.
Yeah.
Yes.
A madhouse.
Speak.
A madhouse.
A madhouse.
Yeah.
Take the microphone. Okay. How was it?
As far as counterfeit medicines were concerned.
Okay. What about politics?
Politics. We were just entering a democratic dispensation.
Okay.
And there was a lot of cleaning up, regulation of the sectors,
Okay.
including the health sector.
Can you give us an idea what Nigeria is like
Now,
then? How many people?
then we were less than 150 million,
Okay.
and now we're over 180 million.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else we need to know about Nigeria in 2001? Just emerging from democratic elections. Okay. A new president. Right? Okay. What else about Nigeria? Here.
In 2001, we can see in one private market working not based on regulation and not conform legal requirements.
Okay, so let's talk about the drug market in Nigeria. What is the drug? I'm sorry, your name is? Bimpe. You said it was. How is the drug market?
How it was?
Yeah.
I said it was a madhouse,
Okay, what does that mean?
unregulated,
Okay.
chaotic, yeah, confused,
Okay.
highly unregulated.
What does highly unregulated mean?
Is far from being regulated.
Okay, so yes.
For the ordinary people, there were lots of fake drugs
Fake drugs.
in the market. Yeah,
Okay. Where did they come from?
oh, from the markets, from outside the country.
Okay. So Nigeria has huge marketplaces that sell medicines. Okay? So you have to imagine a marketplace like the size of this block, okay, in Washington, that has people selling all kinds of medicines, everything you can imagine. Okay? Have you been to one of those markets? Yes? Who? You've been there? What do they sell? What do they sell at those markets?
Such market, it's actually everything from goods. Pardon?
Who goes there?
The buyers and sellers,
Which kinds of buyers?
local, both wholesalers, retailers, sometimes even patients go there,
Okay.
both local and international.
Products.
The product,
Yes.
both local products and international products.
So China and India were providing many of the products. These are huge marketplaces, okay, where the owners of hospitals come to buy things, the pharmacy departments, the pharmacies come to purchase, and they'll sell. Anything can be sold there imaginable, okay? And and very little regulation of what? Of quality.
No regulation for quality, no regulation for the sale, no regulation of the product itself, no regulation of the advertisement, no regulation of the packaging, as it were, as been taught by this morning, no regulation in terms of storage for some of the drugs that require a particular form of storage, and that's why Madam said chaotic.
Chaotic. Okay. Okay. No regulation of anything imaginable. Okay? This is a structural constraint of having one microphone. The mic's on the table, but people don't use them, and aren't loud enough. Okay. So Obasanjo, who is the president, decided to ask someone to help him. Why did he ask? Why did the president ask someone to help him?
The person he asked was very honest, and she herself had wanted a cosmetic surgery for around $23,000, which when not required, she gave back the money. So that appeared to her that she was very honest. And her sister had died also due to diabetes for taking fake medicines. So they found that this person would be appropriate to work in the system.
Okay. And what was her technical area?
It was she was a professor in pharmacy, something, pharmacology.
Okay, so this is someone who had personal experience, was viewed as having integrity, and had professional expertise. Why did the president want to do something on pharmaceuticals? Why did he care about doing this?
Because patients are dying from the fake drugs.
Okay. Anything else?
He was concerned about the international image of Nigeria. He went to Western countries and he wanted to, improve their image, and he knew that the issue of counterfeit drugs was a big issue.
Okay. Any other reasons why the president wants to do something on this problem?
I think simply he recently started his term and he saw this as an opportunity to have some success, for his legacy, etc.
So it's the beginning of his term. He's democratically elected, and this is a problem. This is a problem that people perceived as important. Okay? It had to do with people's happiness, okay, and concerns about health. Okay, now let's think about medicines. When you go to buy a medicine, how do you determine quality? When you go to buy some medicines, how do you know quality?
Most obvious one is price.
So what do? Do you buy high price?
Well,
You buy low price?
somehow in the middle.
So what's the relation between price and quality?
Well, it's a positive relationship back in my mind, but actually I cannot prove it. So for me, for example, buying an expensive pill or something, to my mind, back on my mind unconsciously, it means that it's high quality, it's more curative and everything.
Okay. So one possibility is to think about price. Okay? But I'm sorry, Dardan says, as Dardan said, the relationship between price and quality is not clear. But you think if you pay more, it must be better quality, and if you pay less, it may be lower quality. Okay?
Because sometimes also some pills based on example of companies which actually they are selling on the country. For example, if you buy from Roche or AstraZeneca or some any kind of pills, imaginally in your mind you have visualized that it's high quality. It might get you done soon better.
So this is another cognitive, the way you think. Okay? If you see the brand, you think, oh, it must be good quality. AstraZeneca, MSD, Pfizer, okay? This translates into quality, okay? What are some other ways that you think about? This is really important, okay? If you go into a market and you don't know the quality, how do you figure quality of medicines? Any other ways? Price, brand, packaging.
Packaging, how the packaging looks.
So what do you look for?
Yeah. One, you look at the expiry date,
right?
Date of production, and then the date of expiry. And part of the cognitive something also is how the package looks like. For beautiful packaging, you think, oh, this is good quality.
Right. Okay. Packaging. How does it look? Okay. Does it? You look at the expiry date, what it says, which could be fake. You look at the production place, which could be fake. You look at the quality of the box, right? Is it a good quality box? Or even, does it look nice? Right? Okay? So you can look at the box and the packaging. What else? How else do you determine quality of medicines?
Sorry.
Maybe trust in the seller, the pharmacy where you go?
This is really important. Trust in the seller. Okay, how do you trust the seller?
It's a good question because you've been there many times, or all of your family or friends are purchasing in the same place.
This is your family and friends have been there. You have been there. Your experience. Okay. Reputation. Okay. Does the person look reliable? I mean, this is a real question of, if you can't trust the pill, can you trust the seller? Have you been there in the past? Did the medicine work in the past? Okay? Okay? Is any other ways to determine when you're buying? These are all aspects of market failure because you cannot determine the quality of the pill. You could say, well, taste it. Okay? Taste it and see if it tastes right. Okay? You could, if you were buying a car, okay, you would drive it. Okay, so you see all of these, Netflix films about the drug lords in Mexico, when they're selling cocaine, they put some on the table, they taste it, right? Okay, they see, does it work, right? We don't know about that, but okay. It's hard to do that with anti-cancer medicines. Okay? Any other ideas about medicines?
So for me, as someone who has no idea and do not know how to determine the quality of a drug just by looking at it, I don't think I do. I usually put my trust in the government to do that for me. So in Lebanon, we don't have that issue. I know that everything goes through the Ministry of Health. And I know that the pharmaceutical sector is more or less well regulated, even for price. So I trust them. In Kuwait, it's the same issue. When I'm in a less of a developed country that I don't know much about their laws, I'd rather not buy medicines from there, which is why I usually pack the usual over-the-counter drugs with me when I leave.
So trust in government and trust in the government that you know in terms of their processes and lack of corruption and lack of trust in governments that you don't know, right? So it's that's another interesting. So if you can't trust the seller, you trust the government's control of the seller.
If none of the case works, then it's the prescription of the physician or the doctor I trust. He writes the prescription and he tells, this is the drug which you should have.
He tells you
where to go to buy that pill.
Okay. So then the question is, do you trust the doctor? Yes. Well, and so the doctor is your cousin, yes. Right? Okay. And so, or the doctor is someone recommended to you by a personal friend who knows the doctor, okay, and can trust that these are. So this is already very challenging, okay, to buy a medicine that you believe will be effective.
I just would like to echo what colleague from Lebanon said, and what she has described is a kind of general attitude of patients in my country, in Kyrgyzstan, and they still have this trust in the government, because we are coming from the legacy of the Soviet Union when things were strictly regulated under the top-down kind of approach. But me personally, after having an experience and looking at report which WHO did, that whatever X percentage of drugs counterfeit in the market, and after working with Andreas Seiter, the way I do when I go to pharmacy is I look at like either brand or where this drug is manufactured. While of course ideally it could have been, as Andreas recommended to us, to drug regulatory agency if they don't have capacity to do it properly, but at least to rely on drugs which are kind of registered in the countries, EU or whatever. So, because that is not an issue of GMP, because good is a special drug is a special good.
Okay. So you can ask Andres which drug regulatory agencies work well and which ones don't. Okay.
Just small hint from Ukraine. We have download application you can download from the web, and there you can check if you have any doubts. You can check how the package should look like, what is the batch number, what is the shelf life, expiry date, or even the download the quality certificate. So it's also useful tool.
Okay, so you can download from Ukraine information from the web. Okay, we're going back to Nigeria. Okay, we're going back to Nigeria and to the president who has asked Professor Dora to help him. And she's trying to figure out whether she should agree to do this and what she should decide to do. And she's asked you for help. Okay? So she wants to know those sheets. How can she make the chaotic market in Nigeria work better? Okay? And you know the post-Soviet countries introduced the market in ways that suddenly everything exploded. The market was seen as the solution. In countries like Nigeria, the market has exploded. And you can buy almost anything in almost any quantities. And so she's asked you for help to say, what should she do to make the market work better in Nigeria? She has been asked to take over NAFDAC, the Nigerian Agency for Food and Drug Administration. This is the agency that's responsible for regulating the market. And it's a mess. It's a mess. And so what I'd like you to do is to think about one or two actions under organization. How can she make NAFDAC work better? What kinds of regulations should she introduce? And how can she change the behavior of providers, of consumers, and of drug sellers? How does she work on perceptions? Okay? Are there any questions? Any questions? We'll take about 15 minutes. 15 minutes to work on this. Okay? And then we'll come back and talk. Think about both what she should do under each of these categories and what should she do first? Where should she start? We'll talk about this and then we'll talk about what actually happened. Okay, so 15 minutes. Okay, so Professor Dora has lots of problems. Okay, she has lots of problems. And so where should she start first? Okay, what should she do first? What should she do first? Okay, where should she start? Okay.
Creating new laws or reforms related to e-prescription for drugs by doctor, distribution and controlling.
Hold on. A new law?
Yeah.
The law exists.
Which one is?
The law exists. There's a law.
But a new.
A new law?
Yeah.
Okay. What? So why?
Because.
Who's going to write it? Who will write the law?
The Ministry of Health.
Who? She's head of NAFDAC. It's an agency, independent agency. Okay. There's a law about what the agency does. You think the first thing she should do is write a new law? Okay. Who agrees? Write a new law? Okay. Write a new. First thing she should do? Create a team to write a new law? Create a commission. Create a commission to write a law. Okay? What will the president say? The president will say, oh my God, another commission? The president wants action. Okay? The president wants NAFDAC fixed and he wants change. He wants people to buy medicine they trust.
We believe that the first action she should take is to grow capacity of her agency or do capacity building, like expand. If she can negotiate with the president or whoever controls her, that she is allowed to increase staff, increase salary.
Hold on. Okay. Increase capacity, and you said negotiate with the president. Okay. What does she say to the president?
Well, she can propose him a plan, and against this plan, she should propose her requirements as to resources needed to accomplish this plan. The resources usually are money, people, and regulation.
What does she say to the president? She sits down with the president. She says, Honorable Sir, Mr. President.
Here's my plan, the concept, and this is what I need to accomplish it.
What do I need? What do I need? Money. Okay, money. What else does she need?
People.
People.
Because she might not. I can comment on people if you.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
We're still talking to the president. I need money. I need people. What else do I need? People I trust. Okay.
Regulation.
I need regulate. People I trust. What else does she say to the president? Decision rights. What else does she say to the president? She's sitting with the president. The president calls her on the phone. She goes to visit him. And she says, Mr. President, what is she? Your Excellency. Okay? I'm honored by this request. Okay? But it's a big problem. What else? What else does she need from the president? What does she need? What does she say? What does she say to the president?
She will require authority, freedom to enabling authority, freedom to do whatever she thinks necessary, whatever she thinks necessary to arrest the situation.
Authority to do whatever she wants. Okay, what does that mean?
She can hire, she can fire, she can arrest. Arrest, yes, she did that. Arrest. Enforce, working with the police, she enforce the laws.
Fire, arrest. Does she say anything else? Does she say anything else to the president? Hire, I like that. Hire, fire, arrest. Okay? But does she say anything else to the president? This is her chance before she says yes. This is her last chance to talk to the president. Okay? And she wants to know, what does she want to know?
She should mention to the president the deliverables in the time when these deliverables will be achieved.
What does she want from the president? Okay? Who had their hand up over here? Patrick. From the president.
The ability to determine salary levels herself.
Salary? Okay, she wants to know, I want to pay salaries. Look, guys, she says to the president, when I get in trouble, I want you to help me. Protect me. Okay? This is not going to be easy. I want to make sure that in American language, you have my back. You will protect me. And if I need help, you will help me.
Since 70% of the medicine in Nigeria is imported, the maximum impact she may bring is having a regulation that improves the quality of this imported.
Is that what she says to the president?
No, I'm just giving you the background. What she should say to the president is that she needs a new law or improve and kind of acting a new law that can punish the fake drug importers.
Okay, let's go to the question. She's had her conversation with the president. The president says, this is really important to me. This is important for Nigeria. It's important for the health of Nigerians. It's important for keeping people happy, right? Because people, when they buy drugs, they want to trust them. And he says, look, I will protect you. I will give you power. I will give you money, but I want results. Okay? So that conversation with the president is really important. What does she do next? Okay. Ulla, yes, did you have an answer?
Sure. I think I'm looking at it more as a system change that she needs to do. She needs to change the supply and demand of drugs in the country. So I think the first thing that she would do is, what I understand is that the multinationals are stopped coming. They need to be incentivized to come back. Then there needs to be a price. She needs to...
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
One at a time. Which one is important next?
I think she needs to increase the amount of quality real drugs in the country. That's her. She needs to bring them, and how? I think she needs to bring the multinationals, and so they've got only India and China, and they can't control what they are sending.
So she talks to the president, and the next thing she does is think about India and China?
No, she needs to incentivize.
How?
By pool procurements, by...
Let's deal with this question here. Increase capacity at NAFDAC. Her agency is a mess. Okay? It's a mess. It's corrupt. It's not motivated. So let's start internal. What does she do internally?
She needs to form a team within NAFDAC.
Team, okay? A team of what?
Of those ones who go with her.
Joachim, I'm sure there's a... Okay, here's the honest officials. Okay, good idea. Create a team who go with her that she can trust, right? People she trusts who are honest and will go with her. Okay, now, the tough question, that's the idea. How does she do that? This is organization, okay? She's confronted with, let's say 150 people working there. And she knows that some of them are awful, okay? They don't work, they're getting paid. Okay, so?
Fire all of them.
Fire all of them, okay? How many people say fire all of them? Don't fire, so we have fire all of them, and we have fire none of them. What? Fire some of them. Okay, now, how hold on, who do you fire?
I would conduct an independent review, performance review of everyone.
How would you do that?
I would hire a company to do a review for me.
A private company?
Yes.
From Lebanon?
Not from...
Yes, from Lebanon, we're good at that.
But I think you need some objectivity here.
Okay. How do you need some objectivity to decide who to fire in order... This is really important, okay? You cannot produce change by yourself. You have to have a team. Anyone, for any kind of change, needs a team. Okay? You need a team of people you can trust. Okay? So how do you create a team out of the mess?
I think you have to find your high performers and your allies, and first start internally and then potentially externally. But I think also...
How do you decide your allies internally?
I would hope that this person would already be networked to a certain degree and so would know. But I think the other piece is if they have lack of supervision and incentives, then you need to do a review of their job descriptions. You have to do efficiencies within their task shifting, all kinds of analysis.
Bring in MSH to write job descriptions. Okay? So job descriptions are not going to help you yet, eventually. Okay? How do you choose your team? Elisa, do you have?
I wasn't going to directly answer that question, but I think you have to sort of parse out the capacity building and efficiency piece from the corruption piece, and I would set really stiff penalties for the corruption, no tolerance, and then I'd work, on the efficiency or capacity building piece separately.
Okay, so here's a good idea. Okay, find some way to have strict sanctions on the corruption piece. Okay, this is what we can call, as a metaphor, this is the bad apples in the barrel. Okay, so if you have a barrel full of apples and you have some rotten apples, they will cause others to become rotten. And so the problem is, how do you select the rotten apples to get them out? And how do you increase the capacity? By providing incentives, training, better salaries, trips abroad, investment in equipment so that people actually have the equipment they need to test medicines. Okay, so it requires some investment. The tricky part and the hard part is identifying the people that you definitely cannot trust. Okay, so that requires some networks. It may require bringing in someone to do some investigation, okay? But it has to be clear that you're not going to tolerate either incompetence or corruption, and you have to have strict rules. At the same time, you have to be able to select those people where you think there's potential and invest, okay? So that's part of it. Any other changes inside NAFDAC?
I would recommend to create a task force inside the NAFDAC people and also other teams from the Anti-Corruption Agency, Economic Crime or Customs. Because together they will exchange the information and they know better where are the problems. And they can cover each other. If someone fails, they know that where is the weakest system.
So this is an interesting organizational change to improve the effectiveness of sanctions. Okay? So this is links to police and ports and justice, okay? To create connections to other agencies outside of NAFDAC. Okay, so this is not NAFDAC as an organization itself. It's NAFDAC relating to the police, NAFDAC relating to the courts, NAFDAC relating to customs, okay? And, well, and maybe donors, okay? In order to, let's talk about regulation, okay? So, what does she do about these huge drug markets that are filled with anything? You show the money, you get the product, okay? It is cowboy markets. No external rules, anything goes, all kinds of funny drugs, substandard, counterfeit, and chaos. Okay? What does she do about that? What does she do about the huge markets for drugs? Did you have?
So it should be set up a list of essential drugs which are allowed. Secondly,
there is a list.
Okay.
The list. The problem is
the second is just because it's a lot. It's a house in provision. So to make very clear division, who has right to sell the drugs and who has right to import the drugs. To have very clear division of responsibility.
Those lists exist.
No, I mean the network of.
What does she do about the markets?
To put some regulations on market. Who has rights to?
The regulations exist. The regulations. There are lots of things. The British taught the Nigerians how to write regulations. They have lots of very nice. The British taught the Indians how to write regulations. There are lots of very nice regulations on paper. The problem is the paper is totally unconnected to the reality. What does she do about these huge, unregulated markets?
She'd probably have to try to influence the demand side and, for example, ask Nollywood to come up with a nice soap opera.
Let's start with supply.
Well,
she walks
more
into
difficult.
The market, anything is there and anyone can walk in with money. What does she do? Negotiate. Who does she negotiate with? We're not going. What does she do?
70% of the drugs are imported, and most of them are fakes and low quality. So I think the first time, probably the easiest place to start is to control the imports.
How?
I can either increase the import tax, and I can also have spot checks of the quality at import. And if the company doesn't fulfill the quality standard, then the drug will not get imported.
Okay. So Nigeria has lots of borders. They have lots of ports. Okay? So having a tax, there's no one to collect it. Okay? What does she do about the markets?
I think here there's enforcement that for fine and there's a big range from 3 months to 5 years. I think the first thing she should do is immediately with her task force go into such places and find people who are not abiding to rules and enforce one or two such things stringently,
Right.
so
What
that
should- what
it
should
leaves
she
a
do?
message.
Saroj?
Yeah.
Yes. What should she do? She goes into the market. She finds.
Her team goes. Her team. No,
team
she
goes.
doesn't go.
Yeah.
She's assigned this work.
She sends her team.
Yeah.
And what do they do in the market?
So, as per the regulations,
Thousands of people.
so it's okay. They just catch one or two in the market,
Yeah.
and it will send a message
And
that
what do they do with them?
the punishment which is there, like 5 years of imprisonment, which and a big fine, and it gives a big message, and people are a little scared, I suppose.
Okay, so here's an idea. She says, increase the sanctions, okay, because the current sanctions are meaningless, and find one or two bad cases to send a message. So then we're moving now into persuasion, okay, which is send a message. Now the question is, what will send an effective message? These are multinational, illegal, corrupt drug businesses. It's huge business. This is like the mafia. This is not, like the corner drugstore, a single guy selling stuff. These are billions of dollars of business, okay? And they're big guys. How do you send them a message? They're bad guys. They're big bad guys. How do you send them a message? You go into with your team into the market. What do you do? What do you do in the markets? You want to send a message. And the message is, Saroj, what's the message? We will not allow fake drugs. The message is, this time we're serious. Okay? How do you send that message to these guys?
I mean, would you coordinate with your enforcement agency and shut it down, or enforce laws that coordinate with the agency to have a security plan to shut it down?
You said first, shut it down. Okay? So here's, my apologies that I don't have better, equipment here. I have 2 flip charts. One of them is over here. So send a message, okay? And part of the message is to shut down a market, okay? And okay? And yes.
I just have a concern. I don't have the answer, but I have a concern. I do not want to send a message that I cannot enforce. So I don't want to go and send a very strong message, I will not allow fake drugs, if I cannot not allow fake drugs to go into the market. So I think the prime concern is to find a way to control the supply.
Hold on, Ula.
Yeah.
So you don't want to send a message that you can't implement.
Yes.
Why not?
Because the main issue is people do not trust the government. And these mafias are rampant, and they know that we cannot do much, and this is why they feel so emboldened. So if I send a message that I cannot implement, it will just make things worse.
Okay, so which message do you feel comfortable with?
I feel comfortable with nothing at this point. I feel no, not yet. I feel like once I have a plan to regulate the supply side and the demand side, then I will decide on my message.
Okay. People agree? Which comes first, capacity or message? Capacity or message? Capacity comes first? Who thinks? Yeah?
In this table, we're discussing about the possibility of starting with the positives. Why don't provide information about where the good sellers, the trusted sellers are, and they know who the trusted sellers are. They know where the good medicines are being sold, so they can open a site in the agency's internet site and provide this kind of information.
So here's a good idea. Create a gold star trusted sellers program. Okay? And so you reward those that are following the rules, and you create a network. So that's both regulation as well as persuasion, because you're trying to change the behaviors of the buyers. And start with the positive. Okay? Which is creating an image of trust.
Yeah, why not start with an assessment and identify allies within the producers?
Okay. So you want to find in the producers and the suppliers allies, and what do you do with the allies?
Well, those allies will help me to start an enforcement program.
So the allies can help you with enforcement. They can also help you with information. Okay? So if you have trusted allies, they can tell you who are the sellers who are violating the rules, who are the importers who are having bad quality products. So you want to create relationships of trust with people inside. So this is relationships of trust, okay, with suppliers. Maybe you create a free anonymous service for providing information, okay, so that people can say this supplier is bringing in fake drugs. Any thoughts about what you do about the producers in India and China? From the perspective of Nigeria and NAFDAC in the government, what can you do about India and China?
Pre-shipment inspection, certification of the manufacturing plant and the products.
So you do somewhat what the FDA does. You send people to India. You send people to China to do. That requires money. It requires talented people. It requires people you trust. Okay? Any other thoughts? Okay?
Our idea is to introduce quality on the point of sales. So to create the network of pharmacies which kind of green flag or any sign of quality, and there is a statement then we control this pharmacy, it sells only quality checked drugs, and then this pharmacy would be responsible and takes responsibility for finding correct suppliers which have their reliable drugs, and to do it in professional network, it's much more efficient than create some external agency.
So this is a kind of collaborative regulation, similar to the trusted suppliers, and to create those to let consumers know where they can go and trust the seller. Okay, let me tell you any other good ideas, and then I'll tell you what happened.
From economical standpoint, you can also impose codes to India and to the China.
Impose
codes for imports, codes. Cost, like costs. Let's say 10,000 codes.
Tax.
Codes. You say you can bring on 10,000 pieces in the country. No, not more than that.
Quotas. Okay. Well, there are lots of things you can impose. We were just trying to guess which one. You can have even what India eventually did is that they said our drugs are good, and so they introduced government quality assured Indian producers. Okay?
Just one quick thing. I might limit the number of ports of entry where I'm allowing the drugs through and then try to place my very limited team, in those spots to increase monitoring. I'd also look for the low-hanging fruits. There's boxes that say for export only, so I'd go for the obvious ones and try to inspect those more closely.
Okay, let me tell you what she did. So she did lots of different things. One of the things she did at the drug markets was to burn counterfeit drugs. Okay? So this was similar to Saroj, but it was not, one or two. They were, a pile of drugs the size of this room. Okay? The size of this room. Okay? Hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars piled in a pile, set on fire. So that both says to the suppliers, we are going to hurt you. And it says that sends a message, which is, we are serious. And we're going to actually enforce these rules. The problem, of course, people said, well, how do you know that everything in the pile was fake? And you don't know. Okay? But it sends, and this is a classic strategy in corruption. Okay? It's called fry one of the big fish. Little fish get fried all the time, but find a big fish. Okay? She increased the sanctions, increased the level of the fines. She introduced a code so you could tell whether or not a product was good with a phone number. Okay? So she introduced, of course, and she also improved the capacity in the agency. She fired some people. She invested in equipment. She invested in training. She also gave speeches internationally. Okay, so she went and talked about what she was doing. And she said, Nigeria is changing. Nigeria is making the drug market work better. That's both sending a message, okay? It's persuasion outside the country. It's a message to the international industry. She had a clear message and clear vision, so there was leadership in the agency. She created a database on where the counterfeits came from. She protected whistleblowers, so she made it possible for people to complain and be protected. While she was doing this, there was one time when someone shot at her. So Nigerian women sometimes have big hats. There was a bullet that went through her hat. Headgear, thank you. And so that was an indication that she was starting to be effective. People were upset. She also, one of the challenges is to demonstrate that you're making improvements. So she said that she reduced the percentage of counterfeit medicines in Nigeria. Of course, it's hard to know what percentage actually declined. So, in a sense, she claimed success. She depended and she gave more power to consumers. She did actually, as Elisa said, reduce the number of ports, increased the capacity of customs. She left office as director of NAFDAC, took another position in the government. At that point, she found out that she was sick. So she had cancer. When she went outside of the country earlier and they said that she didn't need treatment, in fact, she did need treatment. She went to, I believe she went to India for alternative therapy. It didn't work, and she died. So, this to me is an inspirational story. This is about how one person with the right spirit and with the right willingness to confront big, bad actors can make a difference. Did she solve all the problems of the drug market in Nigeria? No. Okay? But she made significant improvements in organization, she made significant improvements in regulation, and she made improvements in letting people know that it's possible to have better quality medicines that you can buy and trust. Okay? This is not one of the other messages and lessons of this reform is reforms are not single time events. Improving the government's capacity, putting the market into some kind of a regulated, better condition takes time and takes years. Is there anyone from the Nigerian group who would like to comment on? You will get part B of the case, which describes what she did. The current is there have been several subsequent people head of NAFDAC. Okay, they are not the same kind of charismatic leader. Okay, but they are still in the process of trying to make the agency work better with all of the challenges. Okay, so we'll take another 15-minute break.